Hey, what's happening? This is your host Tinto, and before we get started on this weekend's episode, I'd like to give a shout out to everybody that got me coffees, starting with you, Rutendo Edith. Thank you so much for your generous contribution. 3 coffees there, and your comment reads, "Thank you, Tinto, for the work you're doing. It's truly a mad thing." Hey. And then next up, I got Tino. Thank you very much. Bought me 5 coffees, and your comment there reads, 400, here we come. Well, I think you meant 4,000 because we are aiming for 4,000. 4,000, here we come. For Lisa Sway and Tinashe, 2 of your biggest fans after me. Hey, shout out Lisa and Tinashe. And then I got CC Capwell. Thank you so much for your generous contribution again. 3 coffees. And your comment there reads, "It's taken a while for me to get to this. For many reasons, open brackets, cost of living crisis, what, lol, yeah, I know. I totally get you, close brackets." And then you went on to say, "But thank you for the podcast, the jokes, the lessons, and for advice you gave to me about staying safe. Also, your laugh makes me laugh every time. I love this podcast. Well done. Passing in my red flags. Hey, passing now." And then next up, the Gedza Man. Hey, good to see you again. Thank you so much. 8 solid coffees. And your comment there reads, "Been meaning to do this for a while. Keep doing this, Tinto. Love your podcast." Thanks, man. Appreciate it big time. Bimbai, thank you for your generous contribution as well. 3 coffees. And your comment reads, "Thank you, Tinto, for the work you're doing. I'm so in love with the podcast." And then last but not least, I've got T, who bought me a coffee. And your comment there reads, "I appreciate you and every person who has been brave enough to share their story." Oh man, you can say that again. Thank you so much, so much. And by way of update, if you want to know, as far as the journey to 4,000 is going, we are now sitting on 212 coffees out of the 4,000. Thank you. Rome wasn't built in a day, and I can see this coming alive. So be patient with me. Let's do this together, because what's coming up after the 4,000 target is reached is purely for your benefit, your gain, and I know you will love it. If you'd like to support the podcast in a similar way, please head over to www.buymeacoffee.com/Feelilng Station and give as your spirit leads. Remember, there's nothing that is too small to give the podcast that you've grown to love. And for those on Twitter, and I'll try to do the same on Instagram, I'll put the links in there for you to go and do the thing. With that out of the way, hey, guys, this episode you're about to listen to, okay, let me not say too much, but yeah, brace yourselves.
Is that a breakup? I think we have a situation right here. On the Feelilng Station.
Welcome to the Feelilng Station, a romantic, family, and friendship breakup podcast focusing on stories that people would like to talk about with a view to give you lessons from my guest experiences. I hope you find today's story entertaining, but more importantly, meaningful, given everything that we're going to discuss in this session. Now, the podcast is really popular for 2 main reasons. The first being I do my best to keep my guest anonymous. So I'm going to give you a name as per standard procedure from the African continent. And the name that I'm giving you today...
Hang on a minute.
What?
You haven't even said hello.
Yeah, man, because... oh, shit. the man's too fired up for the episode, yeah? Hello.
Yeah. Hi.
Welcome to the Feelilng Station.
Thank you. Finally.
Okay, how long has it taken for us to do this episode?
It's been many, many years. Like it's been a good few years.
It's easily minimum 2 years.
Yeah.
So
very.
I'm grateful for your growth, I guess, because now you're definitely in a good space, and I think you're ready to talk about this.
Okay.
If we had done this any sooner, I think the conversation would have been premature.
Yeah.
And I think the lessons would have been less real. So thank you for being patient.
Thank you.
With this process.
Yeah.
Back to where we were.
I was scared.
Right? Oh, you were?
I was.
What were you scared about?
The whole thing, just, talking about your life story or whatever it is that you've gone through.
Right.
You just kind of feel like it's not anything special. Like every other person has gone through it. It's like, So I wasn't necessarily keen to do this. I haven't been, and I'm still a bit, makes me nervous, but oh well.
Well, if it gives you any encouragement, every person that has come on this podcast has said the exact same thing.
Okay.
And yet, all of the stories have been very interesting.
Yeah.
So yours is about to be another interesting one.
Okay.
The only thing I'll ask you to do is be completely honest.
Okay.
If at any point you sense some hesitation, or if you think you might have some hesitation, let's just stop right here.
Yeah. Okay, cool. I get that. Let me tell you something. This is my other worry, right? My other worry is that so I do speak English, but vernacular.
Right.
Sure. Every now and again, when you're telling your story, I will potentially have that temptation. You can go to, like what I just did now.
Well, let it drop.
Okay, cool.
And then I'll just reinforce it with the English translation
cool.
of that, because I got people who are not African listening to this.
Yeah, and I'm
So,
aware of that.
Feel comfortable if it helps you hit the point and
cool.
get the point home. Let it run through, and then I'll just translate that.
All right, cool.
So back to your name. Usually
I'm really looking forward to this.
Well, the thing is, usually this is a bit of a peculiar one for me, because I always have a name that is relatable.
Okay.
Well, one that's got meaning to it.
Yeah.
But for the first time, I don't know what the meaning of this is, and I've tried looking around and I can't find it. So if anybody's closer and they know what Ntandokazi means, tell me, because that's your name.
Yeah.
Right? Ntandokazi.
Ntandokazi.
And I'm giving you that because she trended on social media around the 24th of February, 10 days after Valentine's.
Okay.
When a video that trended really, really got her up there.
Okay.
Basically, the long and short of it, for those who haven't seen this video, on Valentine's Day, her boyfriend, Bashe, I think MBA SHE, filmed her receiving his Valentine's gift, which, when you look at it for the first time, seems very simple. He did the best he could. He put rose petals on tiled floors leading into a bedroom.
Yeah.
Those rose petals were still on the bed, but on the bed he had a handbag and he also had shoes.
Yeah.
And what she says is, "Hey man, you don't have money, but you got me this bag and you got me these shoes."
Yeah.
And she's like, "I really like this shoes."
Yeah.
She tries one of them and she says, "Guess what? I'm going to wear this tomorrow." And she just seemed very calm, and a calm demeanor and an appreciative demeanor was attractive to the masses.
Okay.
That's why she trended.
So what about her made you choose that name for me?
She's hot, bruh. Hey. Listen, I have a low-key crush on that girl. Yeah. No, I do. Yeah. Anyway, that's your name. Okay. And the second reason why the podcast is really popular is they're real life lessons that people learn from the story that you're going to tell today. So what would you like anybody listening to this episode today to walk away with?
Do you know what? I think my biggest lesson is about relationships, right? Specifically about a social contract type of relationship. So my lesson is, when you get into a relationship with a social contract, make sure it's defined and that you stick to your agreements, i.e. your T's and C's. Stick to your T's and C's.
Ooh, that is deep, right? So you say when you get into a relationship with a social contract that is defined, make sure that you stick to the terms and conditions.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what that just made me do, because I don't want to be Mr. Smarty and act like I know what a social contract is. I don't. So I've just Googled it. And a social contract is when a group of people agree to give up certain rights and accept a central authority in order to protect their own rights. In simple terms, what that sounds to me like is you and whoever you're going to talk about decided to get together, defined what you wanted to do, which may or may not be the moral norm.
Yeah.
And just stick to it.
Yeah.
Because if it's what you've agreed between yourselves as individual authorities, being accountable to each other.
Yeah.
Full stop. Is that right?
That's exactly right.
Cool.
And to give a little bit of context, so basically me and this guy.
Before we go too far, we haven't given him his name.
Okay.
So I'm going to need a name for the guy that you're going to talk about. What's his name?
I'm gonna call him Vintage 24.
Hey! Vintage 24, you know. Well, why Vintage 24?
Do you know what? The very first day I met him, I remember we just chatting about the things that he likes to do, and he told me that he liked to restore vintage cars.
Yeah.
Right. So that's where that vintage came from. And he actually had 2 vintage cars at the time.
Nice.
He still has one of them. He sold the other one. So that's where the whole vintage thing came from. And 24 is because at the time he was 24 years old.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So I remember one day specifically driving off from him and saying, do you know what? When I write my book, your chapter is going to be called Vintage 24.
That's a mad thing still, you know. Out of curiosity, because I know how old you are.
Yeah.
Is he younger than you?
Yes, he is. I'm feeling a little bit like a cougar here.
How many years younger are we talking here?
He's 6 years younger than me.
That's a mad thing.
It's like that rule, that 4 plus or minus rule.
Yes. And guess what? I saw that on Twitter.
Did you?
Yes.
Do you remember?
And we had a discussion about it.
Yes, you did.
Where somebody and I like how they brought it.
Yeah.
They were like 4 plus or 4 below.
Yeah.
Is kind of the perfect balance. But you're 2 years outside of that.
I am.
What's happening there, madam?
Let me tell you something. This guy. Let me tell you. Yeah, he's everything. He's everything. Like, I would defy every rule, every whatever for him. Literally, he's everything for me.
Wow. Okay, let's get straight into it then.
Okay.
Where did you meet Vintage 24? And why did you feel I'm going to give him a chance?
I gone to Zimbabwe on a holiday, and I met him at Jamtree.
I remember Jamtree.
Yes, Jamtree, the
Yeah.
infamous Jamtree. I met up with my cousins there, and he was there with them at their table. And he was my Bamkuru, so my brother-in-law's friend. It was just one of the guys there. That's how I met him.
So he's somebody known to close family.
Yes, he is.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So you met. Did he ask for your number? What?
No, he didn't. I think I wanted a drink, and there were drinks on the table. So I asked for someone to pour me a drink, and he offered to do that. And then I think I made a comment about ice, and I said, I like it from the source. And I don't know how he took that or how he had that, but he took it in a sexual manner, which I didn't mean. I did not mean that at all. I was just trying to say, I didn't want ice from the bucket. I wanted it straight from wherever it was coming from. But yeah, so he poured me a drink, he gave it to me, we started chatting, and yeah, that's kind of how things went. I was wearing some high heels, I was extremely uncomfortable, and I wanted to go and change them. I had my own car, so because we'd kind of been chatting, I said to him, oh, can you please take me to the car? Can you please accompany me to my car to change my heels? I just felt comfortable with him. I felt safe.
So he took you to the car. He changed your shoes. He walked you back.
Yeah.
At what point did you exchange numbers?
The following morning.
Hold up a sec. What?
We didn't exchange numbers straight away. So what happened is I'd used my sat nav when I was home, right? Put my sat nav Google Maps to get to this place. But when I got there, I didn't have Wi-Fi, or I didn't have network or mobile data to direct me back home. So what happened is, at the end of the night, I was like, I don't know how to get back home. I am here, but I don't know. And he couldn't help me because he didn't know where I lived.
Right.
So he's like, I was like, I'll just follow you. So that's kind of what happened, and we end up sleeping. We end up going to a place and sleeping at this place together.
What place?
It was a Like an Airbnb type of place.
Airbnb, you kind of need to pre-book before. And
I mean, like a lodge then. A lodge.
And check-in is like
Okay, fine.
after 3 p.m.
It was a lodge. It was a lodge. It was like a hotel, I suppose. A lodge, it was not a hotel. It was a lodge. It was something. I don't know what it was. It was not the best place. It was definitely not the best place I've been to. It was something. It was a place. It was a place. Let me tell you something that happened in between, though. So I remember I told you I met this guy because he was my brother-in-law's friend. So my brother-in-law and sister left. And when they left, my sister left me with her friends, female friends. And she said, you can stay with these people. When you're going, you can go with them. I said, okay, cool. At the end of the night, so as the DJ was rounding up, I just did not feel comfortable with these females. I felt more comfortable with him.
Why?
They just seemed a little shady, like a little, I don't know. There was just something about them. I just didn't feel comfortable. So they told me, oh, we're going to Pablo's, blah, blah, blah. I didn't want to do that. Whereas this guy was like, nah. So I asked him, what are you guys doing? He's like, no, we're not going to Pablo's. We're just going to, I don't know. He didn't really say anything. He just said, we're not going Pablo's. It's okay, cool. And I said, I'll stick to him. But that's just because I felt safe with him. Whereas with these girls, I just didn't. And when we left that place, when we left Jamtree, I was like, oh, I need to fuel up. He said, no, actually, sorry. He said he needed to fuel up. So I went with him. And as he was fueling up, he said, oh, I'm just putting $10. I was like, okay, cool. Can you put fuel in my car as well for me? And he said, okay, cool. I only have $10. So I'll put 5 in mine and 5 for yours. And that hit me.
Yeah.
The fact that he had $10 and his last $10, he's going to split it in half for me, a stranger. He did not know me. I was like, oh, okay, cool. And he did. So he put 5 in his vintage Mercedes car and he put 5 in mine. Nice. And then we went to this place.
I'm still to understand how the lodge was readily accessible or available to him.
I don't know what type of place it was. It was just it was a little dodgy. I won't even lie to you.
Well, I get that, but did he not have a flat, a house?
It was like a block of flats. It was a room in a block of flats.
That's where he lives?
No.
But this is the point I'm trying to get in. I don't want to get lost in this because I think I'm enjoying the story already. Did he live in a house or in a flat?
He lives in a house.
Why didn't he take you to his house?
Well, because he lives with his family.
Oh.
Yeah, okay, just like I lived at home with my family. So if I was to take him, I wouldn't have taken him home. I'd have had to take him somewhere else. Okay. So he took me somewhere else.
Fine. Okay, yeah. So he took you there. What happened that night?
Well, what didn't happen? The question is, what did happen? We did the deed. We had sex. And I remember specifically saying to him, I've never had a one-night stand, and I think you're going to be my first. Yeah, and he said to me, I've never had a one-night stand either, and I will never have one. And I remember thinking, like, what do you mean? It means good tea. Like, this is not going to be the first and last time you're going to see me. I was like, okay, cool. I like that. I like that about him. The fact that he was confident in saying that this is not going to be a one-night stand was something to me.
I'm interested in your lesson where you say stick to the terms and conditions of a social contract. On day one, yours did the deed.
Yeah, we did.
Was that part of your contract? And when was the contract formed?
So, fast forward, we've done the deed, and then we just lay there pillow talk. And I remember asking him, do you have a girlfriend? He told me that he had a girlfriend. And I remember saying, okay.
Isn't that a question you'd ask before?
No, I didn't ask before.
You didn't?
I didn't.
You didn't want to know before?
Not that I didn't want to know. It just never came up. It just never came up.
Well, you didn't ask.
I didn't ask, but it just would consumed with everything else that we're talking about that I just never got the chance to ask that. It was only afterwards when we're lying there just still and just kind of taking in the moment that I thought, hang on a minute.
Do you not recall that moment as
Does
men?
this man have a girl?
Do you not recall that moment as men? Post nut clarity.
Yeah.
When the brain finally realizes that, oh
Shit.
maybe I should have asked a few questions here.
That's exactly what
It's okay. Okay, so at the moment of post nut clarity,
I did, yeah.
I don't know if that term applies to both men and women.
Clearly.
Equally.
It must do.
It's just easier for men because when you're nut, right? There's evidence of nutting, and I don't know whether that's it. Okay. So assuming it's the same for women, you're post nut clarity. You asked your girlfriend, he says yes.
Yeah.
How did you feel when he said that?
I just thought, okay, cool. I was glad that it told me the truth.
There's a way in which you said that, okay, cool. It comes across to me like, okay, cool. You told me the truth, so let's just get on. Let's just continue with it.
Yeah, it was we've already done the deed. There's no more like, oh, well, you've got a girlfriend. Oh, I can't sleep with you because you got a girl. Like, no, I was past that now. I've slept with a man. We're here now, right? He's got a girl. She is a fact of the matter. So the problem was the actual sex had been amazing and I wanted more of it. And now I know there's a girl. So I was like, shit, what do I do? And I just thought, okay, I'm going to own it. I'm going to accept that there is somebody there. And as long as he is okay and he's accepting to continue seeing me, even though he's got a girl, then I'm going to be okay with that. But the point of the matter was we were never going to be boyfriend and girlfriend because he was already boyfriend and girlfriend with somebody else.
So what were you going to be?
We were just going to be in a... I don't know. We're going to be fuck buddies, I guess. We were not going to be boyfriend and girlfriend. We're just going to be two people who enjoy being around each other and doing things together, but not in an official relationship.
Have you had a fuck buddy before?
I have, yeah.
So the reason why I asked that question is, did it feel like you would have been like, okay, we can do this because it's something that you may have experienced before? So did it feel less?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fine. So in your mind, you're like, we're going to be fuck buddies. Did he know that you're going to be fuck buddies?
I think if we go off the fact that he said, I've never had a one night stand and I'm not going to start here basically, or this will not be it. I would think that he also knew, because remember, he knew he had a girlfriend before he slept with me. And when I said, oh, I've never had a one night stand, he said to me that he wasn't going to have one with me. That's basically what his statement implied. So going off that statement, I took from that he intended to see me again.
Have you been cheated on before?
Yes.
How did that feel?
It was painful.
But here you are about to cheat with someone on someone.
Yeah.
It didn't cross your mind that you could be hurting some other female?
Do you know what? When I was cheated on, I remember thinking that she doesn't owe me anything. She doesn't. She doesn't. And most times it's always the guy who makes the first move on the girl. Like when I was cheated on and when I would look at the evidence, so when I would look at text messages that have been sent and voice notes that have been sent, it was always my man who was making a move on her. So that made me realize that this is not about her. This is about him. And he is the one who's made the commitment to me. So as far as I'm concerned, cheating hurts. Being cheated on hurts. It hurts a lot. But the person you're in a relationship with is the one who owes you that commitment, is the one who owes you that loyalty. Anyone else outside of that does not owe you shit. I don't know you. I don't know you. And certainly those women, by the way, if I'm going to go back, by the way, I was married. Those women knew that I was Mrs. Ningi. They knew that I was his wife and that I had his children, and they continued to do what they did with him. So But I didn't hold any grudge against them because when I really sat and thought about it, I realized that they didn't owe me shit. There's this whole girl code, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
You know what? Yeah. And then I do all this good to idea to a girl code. But the reality of the matter is each man for himself. People really do what is best for them in that moment. So in that moment, I chose me. I chose me and what felt good for me in that moment. I did not know her. I don't know her. I owe her nothing. Her man does, not me.
God damn.
What?
There's very few moments I'm absolutely speechless.
I just have to be honest. This is my honest truth.
And I'm speechless because of how raw, real, and honest this is.
Mm-hmm.
I get it.
Mm-hmm.
I totally get what you're saying. Because the duty and the responsibility is on the man to behave the right way.
Yeah. In his relationship that he has with his girl. Not me, with his girl. So if they've agreed that being exclusive means that we don't have anybody else, he is supposed to adhere to that. If he chooses to step out of that, that is him breaking their contract. Not me, him. So that's on him, not me. I'm going to go off what he tells me in the relationship that he's choosing to form with me. He told me his truth, and I appreciated that.
Okay.
I was grateful that he told me the truth. Because it would have been a lot more hurtful to find out a few weeks, a few months down the line that actually this person that I formed a relationship with, and at this point, maybe I'm already envisioning him being my man, my husband, my whatever, that he's got a woman. So for him to tell me the truth, I respected that. I was like, okay, cool. Thank you for telling me that.
So he told you that, and then what happens? So you guys do, the deed on the first night. You got the number the next day, like you said. And then what?
He got in touch with me. One interesting thing that he told me on the very first day, I remember him. I said, "So what are you doing tomorrow?" He's like, "Oh, my uncle has got an art exhibition that he's holding." And I'm attending that, and we're going into a Sunday, I think it was. So I remember thinking, art exhibition. Really? Are we in America? Are we in Brooklyn?
This guy's a bougie,
I know.
Because man's restoring cars, yeah? He's driving a vintage Mercedes Benz.
So one thing he's told me, yes.
And then he's attending art exhibitions.
Exactly. Mind you, he's 24. He is 24. So I'm looking at him like, hello, who are you? In my however many years of living older than you, I've never experienced this. I've never had a man say that to me. So immediately I was like, wow, okay, this is interesting. This is new. I want to know more. I want to know about this uncle of yours that does art. I want to know about you restoring vintage cars. I was interested. I was captivated. And the actual sex, by the way, was amazing. Like, he did things to me that got me like, whoa, I want to experience a little more of that. Like, you need to do more of that. Yeah.
Can I remind you, this is the second time you've spoken about how that sex was?
Yo, because it's everything. It was everything. It was everything. It really was.
What did he do differently to what you had experienced before?
He was in control. He was in control. At one point, he took both my hands, he put them on top of my head, both of them, with one of his hands, and he said, "Say that shit again." As he did. Oh, I remember thinking, oh my God. Oh, yeah. Oh,
I am speechless on many levels on this episode. I'm like there's so many things I don't know what to say.
I just could not believe it. I could not. He was in control. He had me. He had me in that moment, and he was doing his thing, and he was doing it right, and it felt good, and yeah.
So it's also vintage 24. You okay? You guys are now in touch. He's going over to the art gallery. But what happens after he tells you about the art gallery and all of that stuff?
So another thing about him was that he was still a university student. So he was in his final year of studies. He was still at uni, and he lived with his girlfriend.
Wait a minute.
Yes.
Wait. I'm confused.
Go on.
You guys went to the lodge because you said he was living with his family.
Oh, yeah.
But now he lives with his girlfriend.
Okay,
so
cool.
who is he living with?
Right. Let me clarify that. So we were in, I can say Harare and what, right? I can say the towns and details. Okay, cool. So he in Harare, which is where he lived. That's where his family home was. That's where Gemtree is. That's where I live.
Yes.
He lived with his family.
Yes.
Right. But he was at university in
a different city.
Yes.
Right, okay.
And there is where he lived with this girl.
Yeah, man.
So when I met him, he had come down for the weekend to go out with his friends, and he met me.
Okay.
He could not take me back to his family home.
Yeah.
So we went to a lodge.
Fine.
But after that, after that weekend, he went back to uni, and that was where his girl was, and they lived together. Yeah.
And then?
And so during the week, we would just chat, text, call. He would call me. He's very much invested, like any guy. You know, when a guy is interested in you, when he calls you, he texts you, hey, baby, good morning, blah, blah, blah. He was doing all that. He did all that. Like, he really was. And I remember just thinking, I need to experience a little bit more of what I experienced over the weekend. Like, I need this guy inside of me.
Yeah,
That's all I was thinking about. Like, okay, everything else, whatever, but can we just get to the and yeah, so I kept saying to him, so when are you coming down? And he said, okay, I can come down this weekend. Now, here's the thing. He's a student. I'm older. I was not happy with the place he'd taken me last time. So I just thought we've got to switch up things right here. So next time round we met up, I booked a hotel, like a proper hotel, white linen Egyptian cotton,
Yes, girl.
not some dodgy shit like what I've been taking to. So we met up at a hotel in Harare. He came down, and yeah. That's what happened. We met up again, and he proved himself to be just as amazing as I thought he was.
So at this point, we're now catching feelings then. Bear in mind, you still haven't told me what your social contract was.
The social contract was, I am a man who is in a relationship with someone. I'm not trying to end that relationship. Hence the reason why he owned that from get-go. If she was nobody, he would not have told me that he's in a relationship with somebody.
So did he physically tell you, I'm not letting this go? Because it's one thing to mention, I've got something. Sometimes what men do is then sprinkle a little bit of salt there to say, yeah, I got something, but it's not something, right? There's a running joke that I have with Kandoro, and I hope he doesn't mind me saying this, long live King Kandoro is doing exceptional stuff in the comedy space. And he says, there's a married man who once said, yeah, I live with my relative and with some nephews and nieces, right? And that's his wife and kids.
Yeah.
Right? So men have a way of, just kind of coating that a little lightly to make it a little, less official, etc., etc. So what I'm basically asking you is, did he...
It was clear to me.
Irrefutably say to you, I am not leaving my girl.
It
All
was
this
clear
is just
to
sex.
me.
He's Did he say it? Is my question.
He didn't say it. He didn't say it in so many words like you're asking, but it was very clear to me that he was not going to leave his girl for me and that he didn't intend to do that.
And that was in his behavior.
Yeah. The fact that he owned her, that from the get-go that he said, I am in a relationship with this person, and that going forward, for example, he will say, oh, I'm with da-da-da, I can't talk, but I'll call you back in a few minutes, meant that there was a level of respect being shown right there. He did not want her to find out, So, yeah, I took it that I know it's weird, but he respected her to a level that he did not want her to find out. And therefore, whatever he was doing with me, he would try and fit it around in such a way that she would not get her heart broken. So it was clear to me. It wasn't said, but it was clear.
So can I ask you what you wanted before you met this man? What did you want for yourself romantically?
So I was recently divorced at that point, and I think I was on this little sexual liberation journey. And
sexual liberation.
Sexual liberation.
But what does sexual liberation mean?
I think for me, it was just that, okay, fine. When I was actually married, I had issues in the department of sex. We had issues there where I was not enjoying it.
Okay.
I just wasn't. I would not get turned on. Nothing. Like there's nothing he would do that would do it for me.
Right. Okay.
And I really started to question whether I was normal, whether I was okay, whether I had spiritual husbands, whether I had, like, it got deep. I really started to question myself because I just thought this cannot be normal. This man is doing all the right thing and my body ain't responding to shit. So when the marriage ended, I was very intentional about trying to get to know me. And I remember listening to a few YouTube people saying, how can you expect a man to know your body when you don't know your body? Like, you don't know what turns you on. You don't know what makes you happy. You don't know what makes you this and that. And I remember thinking, I don't know. I really don't know. And I really wanted to know that. I really wanted to get to know me. I wanted to know what turned me on. I wanted to know what felt good for me. And I wanted to know what didn't. So that the next relationship I was going to get into, I was not going to have that issue again. But the only way I was going to do that was by exploring. So when I mean a sexual liberation, for me, it just meant exploring and getting to find out what did it for me and what didn't. That's all. That's all that meant for me.
So what did exploration mean for you? Did it mean self-exploration or exploration with someone else?
It was both. In the first stage of that was self-exploration. So while I was married, the whole idea of masturbation, being a Christian girl, being a wife, a Christian wife, masturbation was a whole big no-no. Porn was a big no-no. But I also kind of started to think I need to watch what other people are doing for me to know what I like and what I don't. So it started off with watching porn. It started off with touching myself and not thinking, oh, what they're doing is not real. So I started discovering the different categories. So, when you watch porn, right?
I don't know.
When you watch porn, there's a fake looking shit.
Right.
That never did anything for me. And I didn't like that.
Right.
So that's one thing I knew, that when I saw people doing the, yes, like that was all fake to me. I was like, and that never turned me on. But then when I found the category where you can watch more like homemade videos or more like mature stuff, it started to look more real to me. I was like, okay, cool. And that turned me on. I was like, okay, cool. I'm getting turned on now. I'm watching porn and it's turning me on now. Cool. And then the next thing was about touching myself. So I started touching myself. Initially, I was all up in my head. I was like, oh my God, this is weird. You're touching your vagina. You're touching your vulva. Like, what the hell, girl? Like, stop. But as time went on, because I was watching something I could relate to and I was already turned on by it, so my body was kind of prepped. When I then put my hand to my body, it was like, okay, cool. This is feeling good. And then I started moving in the way that I was seeing them moving. So when I watched people, for example, masturbating at home, it was like, okay, cool. This is kind of how you do it. And I started just moving to the rhythm of what they were doing. And my first orgasm actually was at that point on my own.
When you say your first orgasm,
Yeah.
I know you just said on your own. What does that mean about orgasms during the marriage?
I hadn't had any. That's what it means. I hadn't had any. So fast forward now, I'm getting to explore, and I was desperate when my marriage ended, and because I knew that that was one area that was lacking. And especially also going off what people would tell me about sex. When women speak about an orgasm, I just knew that I hadn't experienced what other people were telling me. So I thought to myself, I really want to experience this thing. Maybe this will help me. And if I'm going to go into another relationship, I never ever want to go through what I went through again. So I needed to sort that out for myself.
You know, that's very interesting because people never really tell you the truth about something.
Mm-hmm.
In the same way that whenever you're on Instagram, you always see the best version of people's life and never what's really happening behind closed doors.
Yeah.
I don't think people are very honest about their sexual experiences.
Yeah.
They will always cake and flower up everything.
Yeah.
So, man, there's this guy that I worked with. I'm almost embarrassed for saying this, but there's this guy that I worked with, right? And at some point, as guys, we were just talking about our first sexual encounters.
Okay.
And experiences like the very first, where you break your virginity, etc., etc., etc. And I put my hands up and clearly described that I didn't know what the hell I was doing.
Yeah.
And how that ended.
Yeah.
And they all burst out laughing. They're like, oh, how could that happen? Blah, blah, blah. It happened like that. And then they said, for me, from day one, I was in there, and I turned
knew
inside
what I was doing.
out. And yeah, man. And I remember for some time thinking, shit, I was inadequate as a guy. Only to then realize that was a whole heap of bullshit. But this was many, 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 many years later.
Yeah.
That first encounters are never heroic.
No, they're not.
Half the time, they're actually disastrous.
Yeah.
And for a lot of people, either they use that as a learning curve or they never recover from it, right?
Yeah.
So I'm only highlighting this because you were talking about how you used to listen to your friends and your friends were describing what an orgasm was. And in your head, you were like, oh shit, I definitely haven't had that.
No.
I'm kind of feeling for you because you were put in a position where maybe that wasn't even their reality. For all we know, they had never had one anyway. And they were bullshitting just the same way my homies were bullshitting about their first experience.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
But it's also nice to know that that kind of pressure resulted in you trying to explore all sorts of avenues to then discover who you were as an individual.
Yeah. I think besides my friend saying it, he, my husband, isn't it? I mean, now that I've experienced an orgasm and I've experienced an orgasm with somebody, you can't fake that.
Right.
You can't. If a man has experienced a woman having an actual orgasm, you will know when someone is faking it, and when it's real, you cannot fake it. It just is what it is.
Yeah.
So,
and I think
he knew.
And I think that also comes with age.
Yeah.
The younger we are, the less in tune we are to how a woman is responding than when we're older.
Yeah.
Just to bring it back in, because remember, we were talking about how you are now really captivated by the sex that you're getting from Vintage 24.
Yeah.
And I want to move the story forward for us to get to the point where you're now, you're thinking about, like, okay, what's happening, what is happening. So you know your position. You're clearly a small house being the other woman, right? In this whole thing, and you're okay with it.
I was, yeah.
I'm going to make the assumption that you guys continued having sex.
We did.
For the time that you were visiting the country.
Yeah.
Did you catch feelings?
I did.
And?
Do you know what? I caught feelings, but I felt like he was very much a part of that. I did not just catch feelings on my own. So, for example, the hey, good morning, baby, and the how's your day going? Like the way, he was very much a part of. I did not just catch feelings on my own. And I want to make that very clear because sometimes people make it seem as if you just catch feelings on your own. You would know. he was a part of it. He was doing things to me and speaking to me in a way that made me feel like I knew I wasn't the only one, but he certainly made me feel like I was important, that I was equally as important. He took boyfriend role. He really did. From the moment I woke up to in between, like during the day, checking on me and trying to find out what's going on with me, what am I doing, and if I'm stressed about something, coming up with suggestions of how I can tackle that issue, to, everything in between. Like, he was very much a part of it. He became a part of my everyday life. He really did. Despite having a girl, he had a girl, and I knew that. And when I couldn't talk to him, he would make it clear, like, I'm with my girl, like, I can't talk, whatever. But in between that, he would make sure that he was there for me.
How did you feel every time he told you, I'm with my girl, I can't talk to you?
It was okay, because I knew from day one. What was it to feel? I knew. From day one, I knew he had a girl. So if he told me I'm with this person, the girl, it was okay. Anyone else, I might have felt some type of way. But with her, it was like, okay, cool.
I've been in a situation where I've been the other guy. And it didn't feel nice.
Okay.
I didn't like it. You don't seem to mind.
I didn't. At that point, I didn't. Remember, going back to my lesson. Going back to the lesson that I just shared.
Stick to the terms and conditions.
Stick to the terms and conditions.
Yeah, well, I get you
I
now.
am sure telling you that at some point I didn't.
Yeah, no, I get you.
And looking back, I would say if I had stuck to my terms and conditions, and you see this space I'm telling you I was at, and I didn't feel nothing, he did tell me, and if I had stayed there, I was okay.
So at this point, you're sounding compliant with the terms and conditions.
Yes, I was.
When did you now feel the need? No, not the need, but when did that change?
He made it very clear, like, he didn't want me to see other people as well. So although he had a girl, he didn't want me to see anyone else. He was like, I'm your man. You're my girl. And at that point, and I was accepting. I was like, okay, cool. But
wait a minute. Where's the standard though?
There's no standard, clearly. There was no standard. It was not a 50-50 type of shit. Like, no.
Do you know why you didn't have a standard?
I accepted. I know. I've always known that the standard for women and men is different. I've always known that.
Well, I want to get rid of the generalization. The standard for you.
Even the standard for me, I always knew that what is acceptable for me as a woman is different to what is acceptable for a man. So I can know that he has a girl, but for him to accept the same thing is like, it's not acceptable, basically. So I always knew that.
Yeah. Okay. So you had the benefit of knowing that information, that it's never balanced.
It's not.
But you now have the opportunity to decide how you interpret that and how you apply that to yourself as an individual. So this guy has got a woman, and he's now getting jealous about you potentially seeing other fellas in the picture.
Yeah.
At that point, you could have drawn a line in the sand and say, by my standard, it's unacceptable for you to be asking me this question because I'm not asking you that question.
Yeah.
So don't ask me that question.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound like you had that or you did that.
No, I didn't do that because he would very clearly say, can I swear on this podcast?
If you want to.
Okay, he'll clearly say, fuck that. You're my girl and you're not doing that shit. Remember, going back to the first day I met with him, and if we go back to our sex encounter, he was very much in charge and in control. He would tell me what it is and what it is not. So even when he came, fast forward months later, he would tell me that this is not what it is. We are not doing that. I'm not okay with that. I will never be okay with that. And it was up to me to either accept it or leave. Yeah, you're either in it or not. Full stop. It's either you're going to go with my terms and conditions, his terms and conditions, or you're not. And I chose to go with his terms and conditions. Because, do you know what? I like that. I liked a man in control. A man who would say, I've got a girl, yeah, I know that, and I've told you about it, but you're still my girl, and this is what it is. You're not going to go around fucking around with different men and doing this and that and still be with me. That's not what it is. You're going to be with me, and I'm going to be your man. And he will say to me, what am I not giving you? That's the question he would ask me. What am I not giving you? I talk to you all day, from morning to night. I visit. Yes, we don't see each other every day because I live in a different town. Forget the fact that he had a girl in that different town, but he lived in a different town. But every weekend he would come down, and all weekend he would be with me. And he became very involved in my day-to-day life, including over the weekends, being with my family, my friends, and you know what I mean. So it was like, what is it? What do you want from Peter that I'm not giving you? So, and I couldn't answer that because there wasn't. Like, he was really doing everything that he needed to do. Like, him having a girl was not really a factor. It was a fact, but it was not, it didn't affect, and it didn't affect our relationship and what we had.
It was a fact, but it wasn't a factor.
Yeah.
Can I ask about your esteem, your self-esteem?
Okay.
So you've come out of a marriage, and I've not asked about that. That's not what this episode is about.
Mm-hmm.
If you were to put it on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being I got 0 self-esteem, and 10, my self-esteem is freaking incredible, where were you?
6.
You were a 6.
Yeah.
And I'm asking that because of the level of submission in quotes.
Yeah.
And I'm putting it in quotes because it's a fine line between someone being in charge and someone being emotionally abusive. Fine line. And I think some of it may have a part to play with how somebody's self-esteem could be positioned. Bear in mind, I'm saying this from a place of novice.
Yeah.
I'm not a therapist,
Yeah.
nor am I trained in this sort of thing. So I'm just inferring. So if your self-confidence was a solid 6, it feels like you're taking a lot of bullshit
Okay.
from someone who's got a woman and suddenly doesn't want you messing around with other men.
Yeah.
Sounds like he wants to be a control freak.
Okay. Do you know what? What I've learned is you've got to learn how to play the game. And if it means you come off as being a little stupid, as being someone who's taking a little bullshit, then that's how it is. But you're playing the game.
What game?
So ultimately, I didn't want to lose this man because he was giving me something that at that point nobody else was giving me.
Which was sexual gratification?
Sexual gratification.
Uh-huh.
Right? And a man who is in charge and in control, despite his age, he just had something about it. And no other man in my life at that point had that, including my husband. He was older than me. And the reason why we had so many issues is he felt like he could not control me. He felt like he could not speak to me and I'd listen. This young guy, he just had to say one word and I would listen and I would conform. I don't know if that makes sense, but he had something and I loved that. And he would listen. He wasn't all hard. He was soft. He would do all the nice, soft, mushy stuff that you expect from a relationship, but he knew when to say stop. And he would say stop, not in an abusive way, like a just normal stop. And I knew that this is stop. You know, it's like that. I don't know if you've had this podcast where I forgot what my name is, but she said, if you know to tell me shut up and I'll shut up, you know.
I don't know.
Do you remember?
I don't know the podcast, but I've seen a clip.
Yes.
I've seen a clip of a woman, right?
If you can tell me to shut up,
well,
you can. And if you can't, you cannot.
This one was about a woman who was ranting and raving and screaming and shouting, you can never tell me anything. Then all he says is, shut up and sit down.
Mm-hmm.
And all she says is, okay, I'm sat. Right? And that was it.
That's the guy he is. That is exactly it. Him. He is that guy.
The rhetoric.
Whereas the other guys would do the most. He is the guy. He just has to say it. And I know he's serious and I listen. And he doesn't have to do the most. He will just say it. And I know.
The rhetoric in the world now is fuck submission. I'm a woman. I'm independent. I do what I want. This is my body. All of that, affirming strong stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're giving me vibes of fuck that shit. I want this nigga to put me under his thumb, and I want him to put pressure whilst I'm down there. That doesn't fit with what the world is prescribing right now for what women should be.
I used to be that woman that was, I'm a Miss Independent, 50-50, blah, blah, blah. I am not that anymore. In hindsight, looking back at my marriage, and especially some of the things that my husband would say about submission, about respect, it made me really look at what is respect, what is submission. And I started to understand it. And in a way, I started to appreciate it. So with this guy, I know it's weird, but yeah, I was willing to conform and to respect him and to submit and to be under him. But ultimately, the one who was getting what she wanted was me. I was getting what I wanted. I was getting a man who would check on me every single day, a man that I felt safe and secure with, a man who would be there when I needed him to be there, a man who was satisfying me sexually in the way that I needed to, a man who was involved in my day-to-day life. He was doing all that I needed to, as long as I stayed at a certain level. And as long as I listened to him, I would get what I needed from him. So I was winning.
Would you describe yourself as a selfish individual?
Selfish.
Yeah.
Selfish. I don't know.
I'm only asking that because in the last 45 seconds, all you said is I.
I now look out for me.
Yeah, and you were back then.
Yeah, I now look out for me because I've really realized that going back, do you remember you asked me earlier about, what about the other woman, blah, 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 when you were being cheated on, the other women were not considering you. How did you feel about that? It really made me think that everybody looks out for themselves, and that's okay. So if that makes me selfish, I guess I am. I guess I am selfish. I'm going to look out for my own. What makes sense for me? Because that's all I can do. That's all I can do. All I can do is look out for me and what makes sense for me and what works for me. I'm never going to be anybody else. I'm only going to be me. So yeah, if that makes me selfish, then I guess I am selfish.
Okay. So, we're now back to the terms and conditions being broken. Who broke them?
I think we both did. He caught feelings. He became extremely. He right. He had a woman. Exclusivity was specifically with his woman, and he started to demand that with me as well, which goes back to what you were saying earlier, that this is not fair. It's not a 50-50. So if we go back to the social contract is you've got a girl. And I kind of understand that you've got a girl and I'm going to, be with you despite that.
Yeah, I'm going to be with you and I'm going to stay in my lane. I'm not going to cause you no bullshit.
Yes.
Okay, cool, yeah.
Right. But he started to demand that I be exclusive with him. So I felt like at that point, the social contract was being broken from his point of view.
So at that point, what options did you have to deal with that breach of contract?
Either to affirm the contract and say, this is what it is. You have a girl. I can do whatever I want. You've got a girl. I can also be with someone else.
Or
to stick to what he was saying, which was, I've got a girl and I'm also going to be a girl. And I'm not going to have anyone else.
Which one did you go for?
The latter. But in doing that, I kind of fucked myself over, really, because it meant that I now expected him to be completely my man. And do you know what? The problem really started when the whole situation became messy because other women started getting involved. Forget her, the main woman. She didn't even become an issue. We started having other women get involved and whatever. It just all became very messy. And
But it shouldn't get messy.
it shouldn't.
Because you remember, right at the back and the beginning of this, that ain't your problem.
Yeah.
The fact that he's got other women in there ain't your problem.
Yeah.
Because your need was to get an itch scratched,
Yeah.
which he was doing. So
Yeah.
as far as your needs were concerned, you were fine.
Yeah.
You're not about to tell me the other women were a problem, were you?
They weren't, but I think it really started to make me think you can never see what. I think part of me started to think that you've got her. She's not meeting your need. Clearly, that's why you need me. But you now have two of us. Surely, between the two of us, we should be able to meet your needs. So you should not need a third or fourth person.
Yo, this is mud still. It sounds like you can take the heat, but he can't. Take the heat and the fact that you're starting to speak to other men. Were you? Were you?
At that point, yeah, maybe. Yeah, actually, yeah, I was talking to someone else. And initially, I didn't tell him about it.
Who was this other person?
There was a whole other person. I
Right.
met someone else
Where?
a few months later in Zimbabwe as well.
Right.
And this person was really interested in me, and it was serious. And it was serious. Like I would spend a lot of my time with him. So I was now in the position that he was.
Wait. How did you determine it was serious with this other guy?
Just, do you know what? Let me tell you what it was about this guy. Out of the two, between Vintage 24 and this guy, Vintage 24 was a man who was a young guy. So Ben 24. Ben 24, Ben 10.
Ben 10. Bloody hell. Keep the numbers down, man. Shit.
Okay, sorry. I mean Ben 10. So Vintage 24 was Ben 10, right? Who was in a relationship. And that's what it was.
Yeah.
Fun. That's what it represented.
Yeah.
Then I met another guy
Yeah.
who was older than me, right? Like 5 years, 6 years older than me. So that's the usual profiles used to. A working man. He was recently divorced like I was. He had children like I did. So his profile was perfect. It was like, yes, if I'm talking about moving on, this is the kind of guy I kind of want. Someone who understands, someone who is within the age range that I want. And he was just perfect in every sense. Yeah, that's what it was.
You still haven't told me why it was serious.
It was serious because he equally wanted what I wanted. We were both interested in exploring what we had and seeing if it could develop into something, if it could develop into a committed relationship.
Sounds like you're exploring and not that you were serious.
But we were exploring in a serious way. There's exploring where you just kind of see, like we saw each other every single day. Like literally, I would be at his house every day. And our weekends, we would plan them around each other. It was serious in that manner that we started to tweak what we were doing in our days and, you know, to match each other, to make it work for each other. That's how serious I mean.
Right. Let's talk frequency. You were seeing Vintage 24 once a week. Right? Which was as frequent as he possibly could. So he was at the maximum attendance he could be at. Right? This new guy is at the maximum attendance that he can be. May have been daily, but it was at the maximum.
Yeah.
Right? So those two match. So if you're saying that it's serious based on attendance, Vintage 24 is equally serious. Yeah? Let's talk sex. Were you having sex with the new guy? So you're having sex with the new guy, you're having sex with Vintage 24.
Yeah.
You're having sex. Equal amounts, I'm assuming. If that's the case, ticked. Both serious. I still don't get how the new guy is more serious than Vintage 24.
I mean, criteria-wise.
Apart from the fact that Vintage 24 got no kids.
No, criteria-wise, they were just not the same. So Vintage 24, like I said, was a Ben 10 fun guy, blah, blah, blah. This guy was someone that I could actually see myself with when I considered being someone who could potentially marry me, who was in a position where he could do that. He was. Vintage 24 wasn't. Vintage 24 was in a relation. Vintage 24 was still a university student. This guy was actually someone who was working, had a good job, good position, had children, had experienced a marriage failing. So profile-wise, he matched the sort of profile I wanted. That's what I mean by, in terms of, if I had to compare the two, he was the more serious candidate. He was the candidate that I really should have been messing more with and less with Vintage 24.
So you're on the Feelilng Station because we talk about breakups.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming you're not with either one of them.
No. Well, Vintage 2024 is still around, but the serious guy isn't.
What happened?
It ended. As time went on, he just... I don't know. It just ended. Yeah. It just ended. As time went on, it became... The funny thing is, he came to England. The serious guy was in a position where he could come to England for 2-3 weeks, spend time with me, go back to Zimbabwe. That's the position he was in.
Right.
But as time went on, do you know what? He was safe. He was just safe. He was comfortable. He ticked the profile, but he didn't make my blood rush. He was just a good guy. But yeah, he was a safe option to go with. And I don't know, from his part, he said that it was the distance that was the issue. He just, and also he didn't want, because I was in a little transition. The reason why I was going to Zimbabwe was I had a reason why I was going to Zimbabwe so frequently, and he felt that I needed to focus more on that.
You're waffling.
I know. The relationship ended, and I can't tell you the exact reason. It just ended because it did. It had a natural death.
You just described him as safe was a problem.
He was safe. He was a safe guy who was comfortable, and as time went on, we just decided that it wasn't going to work.
We?
Me and him.
Who decided? Who called it out?
He did. But when he did, I think I didn't fight it. I got it.
Okay. I'm not going to dwell on him.
Cool.
Back to Vintage 24.
Mm-hmm.
So he's upset you're not his exclusively. There's other guys, blah, 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 blah. Still going to take you back to the social contract. Social contract is now starting to crack.
Mm-hmm.
Because T's and C's are not being adhered to.
Mm-hmm. We were acting more like boyfriend and girlfriend, and yet we, as per our social contract, we were not. We were not. So we were breaking our social contract. But what we were gravitating more towards was being each other's number one. But we were not.
He was your number one.
He was.
You were his number two.
Yes.
So it was never going to be a problem for him. It was going to be for you demanding more.
I think for him, being a number two is not something he wanted. I was okay with being a number two.
Yeah. So I get that bit. He was only number two temporarily because this new guy has come and gone anyway.
Yeah.
So that's not a problem. It sounds to me like the problem here now is you wanted more.
I did, and he expected more of me as well. Like, he expected me to be completely exclusive to him, and I was happy to give that. But I think I started to just see the double standards more, and it started to bother me a little bit. I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah, it did. In a way, in some ways, there's sometimes it just was not comfortable. It was not roses. It wasn't easy. It wasn't easy just accepting that there was someone else. And like I said earlier, he started talking about other women. So there were other women that were being brought into the picture. Part of our social contract was that he was going to be transparent about what he did and when he did it. And he started telling me about it. And he would tell me that, last weekend when I went out, I met this girl from Botswana and she was like A, B, C, D, and we did A, B, C, D. And I remember thinking, shit, really? So me and A and B, us, we are not enough for you. You still want to explore C and D. And it really started to bother me.
Okay. So what did you do when this started bothering you?
I just told him. And he would say, and he would apologize. He would do what any guy would do. I'm really sorry. I didn't mean to do that. I didn't mean to hurt you. It was just a bit of fun. She's nothing. Blah, blah, blah. He would do all that. I would accept it. And I would stick to my end where I would not be talking about any other guy, blah, 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 because that's what he wanted to hear.
What led to you guys breaking up?
She found out.
How?
They were out together with their friends. This is a story I was told. They were in a car with a friend and they were playing music on his phone, the friend's phone. She then said, "Oh, you guys have been playing your music a lot. I also want to select what I want to listen to." They said, "Okay, cool." And they handed her his phone, the friend's phone, to select what music she wanted to listen to. When she did that, I don't know how she decided to go to his WhatsApp conversations with her man, right? So the friend's conversation and his conversation, that's the conversation she went to on WhatsApp. And the last sort of discussion they were having was about me. So she then typed my name on his phone, so on his man's phone, and she saw so many other conversations pop up that involved me, that were saying that, he was with me, he was coming to meet up with me, or we're doing ABCD, da 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 da. So that's how she found out about me.
That shit confused the fuck out of me. I was not able to follow who's who, but what I'm taking from that is that she found out through his phone.
Yeah. No, through his friend's phone.
Okay, through his friend's phone.
Yeah.
Okay, that this is happening.
Mm-hmm.
And then what happened?
And then they had an argument. And she said she wanted to speak to me. He told me that. He said, "You know what? Shit's hit the fan. She wants to talk to you." And I said, "Okay, that's okay. Give her my number. I'll talk to her." I think when he did that, he did it he thought that I would just be like, just give minimal information. And that's what I thought as well. I genuinely thought I was going to give minimal information. So he gave her my number and she sent me a message and she said,
Sorry, I've been battling trying to not let that out, but that is some bullshit.
But that's what happened.
Well, it's what happened.
Yeah.
But I'm also telling you now, I need you to listen to next week's midweek drop.
Okay, cool.
Because it's entirely about people who call the other person.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I can ask you this because it's literally going to tie into this week's midweek drop.
Go on.
Tell me about that phone call.
Yeah.
Were you expecting it?
I was, yeah, because she
Okay.
texted me first.
When it came,
Yeah.
how did everything go?
it did not go according to how I thought it would.
Describe how it went.
So basically, we just started talking, isn't it? Like, hey, how are you? I'm this person. She's that person. And she asked me, how do you know my man? And I said, this is how we met. And she's like, okay, so are you guys serious? And I said, as far as I'm concerned, yes, we are. I said, what do you mean? I said, I've always known about you. But as far as I was concerned, he was equally invested in me and what we had going on. So I was happy with that. I think what baffled her the most out of everything was the fact that I was an older woman. So this is a guy who he was a cheat, and she knew that. He had cheated with other women before, and she had known that. But I think what was different about our case was 1 year later. By the way, this is fast forward 1 year later. That's when she found out. So it was like, I've not known about you a whole year. You're older than he is. What is it about you? And you guys are serious? Clearly you are, because how I found out about you was from a conversation between him and his friends. And when I searched your name in his phone, it was several conversations between him and his other friends to do with you. So you're a serious thing. Like, you're not just any random girl, you know? So yeah, she just had many questions for me and I answered them. But the problem that happened was she started to make it seem as if I was his blesser. Your face?
Were you? Because remember, you're working and he isn't.
I wasn't. Remember, going back to the very first day we met and we went to the fuel station, and what he had was $10 and he put 5 in mine and 5 in his. That was really the story of our lives. Whenever we're together, the little he had, whether it was $20, whether it was $30 or whatever it is, $100, if I asked him for something, he would always do it for me. And I never gave him any money. I ended up booking our locations for us to meet up because I just wasn't happy with what he was trying to put me in. I had a higher standard I expected and he couldn't meet that. I could, so I booked that for my sakes. But if I wanted to stick to his, he would have continued doing that. So
How regularly did you book these places?
I think initially we booked it like every weekend.
We or you booked it?
I booked it every weekend. But as time went on, we started actually meeting up in my place.
Okay, so
my family home.
So your family home.
Yeah, because he became known. Like, people at home started to know him because I was always with him.
So you introduced him to your family?
I did, yeah, as my friend.
As your friend?
As my friend, yeah.
Your family, are these people younger or older than you are?
Older and younger, yeah.
So older people can read through the bullshit very quickly.
They can. But I think what confused my grandmother specifically was the fact that this was a young guy with absolutely nothing. So in her head, she really accepted that there's no way that this young guy could entice her in any way. So as far as she was concerned, she genuinely believed that it was friendship.
So that's grandma. What about everybody else?
Everyone else knew what it was.
But you see what's happening here now?
Yeah.
You are introducing somebody who's unavailable to family. And when family gets invested in relationships, they're doing it for nobody else except you.
Mm-hmm.
Family will always have your back no matter what.
Yeah.
Knowing what you knew, that you were not the only one, in terms of the girlfriend and all of the other women, was that fair to family?
I suppose it was not fair to family, but this was not about family. I was doing what made sense for me. I could not maintain going to these hotels all the time. That was not practical. I had a home, I had a room. By the way, with his house as well, when his family were not there, and there were times when his matriarchal family were not there, I would go to his place as well. But we started cancelling out the whole hotel situation because it was too expensive. Like, we could not maintain it long term. So it was not about what they thought and how invested they were going to be. It was just about what was practical for us. And it meant them knowing him as my friend.
I know we touched very lightly about the selfish component that may have a part to play
Yeah.
in all of this. And you have said, yes, you are selfish. This feels selfish. So let's talk accountability. As far as this whole thing is concerned, how much of your selfish being contributes to where you are now? Because this move you just pulled to the family is selfish. They didn't need to know this man who's unavailable. They didn't need to become emotionally involved. They didn't need to become emotionally attached.
But they were emotionally attached, knowing that I know they knew that we were doing things on the side. They thought we were doing things on the side. But ultimately, they knew that I wasn't fully serious with him to point of marriage. They always knew that because he was younger than me. It was very evident that he was a young man. He was just fun. He was just all game. So they knew what it was.
Yeah, but
They didn't expect any more of it. They were very accepting. Those that knew what it was were very accepting of what it was. So I don't feel like I did them wrong in any way.
They didn't need to know that this was a joke. They didn't need to. They were just going about their daily lives, going about whatever
What do
they
you
were
mean
doing.
they didn't need to do that? My family has the right to know every aspect of me. Why not?
But you knew this guy was never going to be anything serious.
And that's okay. And they never expected him to be anything serious. That's the point I'm trying to make to you. He was a friend who with benefits.
He was a fuck buddy.
Yeah, he was.
So you're saying to your family, hi guys, this is my fuck buddy.
Yeah.
That's not okay.
Why?
It just isn't.
Why?
Because family gets involved. Family gets invested. Emotions don't just dip in and out. Emotions are deep rooted. Right? And don't forget, right, that we're coming from a culture where community matters.
Yeah.
Right? We're Black, we're African, we're Bantu people. The spirit of Ubuntu is embedded into our DNA.
Mm-hmm.
You don't look at someone as a stranger. Nobody's a stranger where we come from.
Yeah.
The moment you rope them in to a friendship, into a family, into a society, into a community, they become blood.
Mm-hmm.
They become bonds.
Mm-hmm.
And that feels a bit reckless.
Call it what you will. Mind you, I am a grown woman. I've been married. I am out of my marriage. I am exploring. And they understood that. They knew that this was not my next husband. They were very okay with that. They were not expecting him to be that role. They were accepting of the role that he was. Undefined. They were accepting of the role that he was.
With all due respect, I don't buy that.
Okay.
But let's not dwell on it.
Yeah.
So, he's now a part of this family. There's all of this other...
Can I ask you something?
Yeah.
So when I say my family knew, who do you think knew? Because I think maybe... So my family is quite small, right? And the people who actually knew was, my grandmother. But like I said, with my grandmother, she would look at him and think, he's such a young guy. Like, there's absolutely no way that there is anything more. Like, even whether she thought there was, she would be trying to deny it in her mind. She was in denial, basically. I think she's been in denial.
Did she say she was in denial?
She didn't say it, but she never fully accepted it. And I say this from conversations I was told she had with the other people who knew. The other people who knew was my Mangnini, right, who is younger than me, and she's almost like a little sister to me. And our house helps, our maids at home. So those are the people who saw him. Like, when I say family, I don't know who you're thinking in your head. Maybe you're thinking a lot of people, but it was my small immediate, the people I lived with at home. Those are the people who met him. And these are people who could not have really said anything to me about him. They saw it. They went along with it because that's what it was, but there is nothing else they could have said. This sounds wrong, but yeah. But But that's what it was.
And I'm deliberately quiet
Yeah.
because
It was not like my Mbuya, Sekuru, Bamkuru, my guru, Tete. Da, da, da. No, it wasn't none of that. It was just my very immediate, very small family.
so the reason why I'm deliberately quiet about that is, and this is not to say a view is superior over another view. We're all entitled to very different views. Family and what I bring to them, knowing that family will always have my back no matter what.
Yeah.
Demands of me to be as pure and honest as I can as Tinto, and I've made that conscious decision for myself.
Mm-hmm.
So I present them with as little moral challenges as I can. I will never approach my family and say I'm screwing somebody's wife.
Okay.
They don't deserve that moral burden.
Says you.
It says me.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying, it says me.
Yeah.
So that's why I don't want to delve into this any deeper or any more, because I think we've got two polar opposite views.
Yeah, we
about
do,
that.
clearly.
And those differences are okay to have.
Yeah, clearly. Because one thing I can tell you about me, I am someone who is very, I am like I am who I am.
Yeah.
I'm very honest about what I am.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter whether you're family or friend, I would be honest with you, even if it makes you uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So I might have put my family in a situation that was uncomfortable. But one thing they knew, was that I was going to be me, and I was being honest about me.
Mm-hmm.
What I was being honest was, I am in a situation with this young guy, and it's fun, and I'm enjoying it right now. And they were happy for me because they knew the road I had walked and where I was. They knew that I was a divorced woman, that I was searching, that was exploring. They knew that. They knew that he was not my next husband because I hadn't introduced him as such. So they were not critical. They were not harsh on me. They were allowing. They said, okay, girl, live your life. Do what you got to do.
Yeah.
And we would rather you bring this guy here and we see him than you go and mess around in some dark little corner and shit happens there and we don't know. I have always been that girl. You're going to see my mess. Whether you like it or not, it is what it is.
Right. Okay. So talking about mess.
Yeah.
Where are we today with the Vintage 24? You're on the Feelilng Station because something didn't quite work out.
Yeah. Vintage 24. We are 2 years going into 3 years into our relationship. She knows about me because remember I told you her and I spoke.
So she's still in the picture.
This confuses me because 1 minute I talk to him. Since she found out about me, they have been on and off because I was the one thing that she cannot get over me because she knows that I was serious because she spoke to me. So today, as I speak to you, he tells me that they are not together. But if you ask me, I even told him that you two will get back together. She's just a little bit upset and in her emotions. But, listen, the sex is good. They're going to get back together. They will. Full stop. They will.
So this is 3 years down the line.
Yeah.
Okay. The initial reason why you got with this guy is you wanted an itch to be scratched.
Yeah.
Which he scratched. And I'm assuming continues to scratch. Outside of the sex, what does this man offer you, Ntandokazi, of value that you want to stick around for?
That's a good question. He's there. He's consistent. Every single day he shows up.
For you, for his girlfriend, and possibly other girls. So that showing up is not something I want to bring to the table and
What
say
he shows up for,
up.
what he does for other people, I don't care about that. It's about what he does for me. Right? I don't know how well he shows up for the other women. He must be doing so well because they're all there. But all I can tell you is despite them being there, he does what he needs to do for me. And what he does is sufficient for me. And that's all that matters. That is all that matters to me. Every morning he shows up. During the day he shows up. At night he shows up. Our relationship is long distance because I'm back in England. He is in Zimbabwe. So that's what it is. But every single day, this guy shows up for me in the way that he is. I'm very aware of the fact that he talks to other women. When he's sending that good morning message, maybe he just copies and pastes to all 3 or 4 of us. Maybe he does.
Maybe I should tell him to pull a leaf out of Captain Planet's book. Because Captain Planet just formed the WhatsApp group and he says one message to all three of them.
Maybe.
It's like good morning and boom.
Yeah.
You can give it a 24-hour dip right there.
Maybe that's what it does. Maybe that's what it does. But either way, he is ticking the box. He doesn't do it in a way I've never felt any less than. He has been consistent about how he does it. He still makes me feel special with how he does it. So I love that about him. He is in control. I keep saying this, but although we're not in the same country, this man, I will be in my office thinking, shit, he's not happy with me. I need to make things right. There is something about him that he just possesses this control. And I know some people, some women specifically, will not be happy with that word control, but he does. And I love it. I love a man who's in control. I love a man who can tell me yes and no. And he can. He does not always agree with me. And the fact that he's younger than me and he can do that, when grown men older than him cannot do that, men who are older than him find me challenging. He is younger than me and he doesn't. So there is something about him that just, he brings more to the table than just the sex. The very fact of the nature that our relationship is long distance tells you that it is not just about the sex. The sex is only present when I am physically present in Zimbabwe, which is every few months. I'm not always there. And in all fairness, the very fact that he has a woman there is part of what made this whole situation work. Our social contract worked. Our long distance relationship social contract worked because I knew that, one, I don't live in Zimbabwe, but when I'm not there, I know that he's got a girl who's meeting his needs. I am in England, but when I am there, I am equally meeting his needs as well. And it just works. It worked for me. And I remember saying this to her. I remember saying, do you know what? Our relationship works because you're there. And obviously she was not amused. She was not happy about that. But I was like, it really does. Because when I am not there, when I'm back in England, I know that you're looking after and you're taking care of him and his needs. And when I'm there, I know that I am doing that as well. So it works. I never have to guess. You know, these men who be like, oh, I'm in Zimbabwe or I'm in America, but babe, I'm single. I'm not doing nothing. They're lying to you. Most of them are lying to you. They're fucking someone else on the side. But with him, I knew who the somebody else was. And that gave me some comfort. I knew who it was and I was happy with that. So, yeah. I don't even know what you asked me, but hey.
At this point, it doesn't matter because I am. You've given me a lot to think about. That's all I can say.
Yeah, I think
I'm somewhat speechless.
Is that a good thing or bad thing?
I feel when I hit the stop record button, I just need to go decompress and think.
Okay.
About a few things in a good way.
Okay.
Because I think it's nice to reflect. I think it's nice to I don't know, just take a step back and digest stuff. Yeah. I just feel I need to do that.
There's a few points I need to make clear. Number one, life is not black and white. My relationship with this guy is very much in the gray, right? It's not black and white. There's gray lines.
Yeah.
Me and him fall in the gray lines where it is not we are boyfriend and girlfriend. That is black and white.
Right.
I am the girl in the middle and is very much someone who was meeting his need in a real way. So I fell in the gray lines. Our relationship was in the gray lines. When it comes to my family, one thing that we always talking about is the culture that we come from and and how we grew up and how some of us have ended up in the situations have ended up in because we were brought up in these very strict environments. Pros and cons to that, of course.
Yeah.
My family, rightly so, is a family that accepts me at this stage for who I am. And that's okay. That's beautiful. I don't feel like I've got to hide anything to my family. I really don't. And I think that has to be celebrated. It doesn't have to feel comfortable with anybody else. Some people might choose not to be as transparent with their families. That's okay. That is your choice. With my family, I choose to be me. I choose to be fully 100% transparent. And they accept it because they accept it for what it is. And that's okay. Now, it might not be comfortable with you, but with you or anybody else, but for us, it's okay because they know what it is. So, but like I said, going back to the lesson to all this about the social contract,
the social contract,
about the social contract. The social contract was that him and I were in a situationship without definition, which became very bled because emotions and feelings got involved. I started to see he was my number one. I was his number two. But as his number two, I was his number two and I was not supposed to have anyone else involved. But in my head, I'm like, hang on a minute. No, you're not mine. I'm not your number one. So I should be exploring other options. And it all got very messy. You know, had we stuck to what it was that you have a girl and I am single and we're just in this situationship and doing what we're doing and we're allowed to do whatever else, it would have been okay. But unfortunately, it was, again, not black and white. It just became messy and feelings got involved and I was hurt and he was hurt. And to this very day, like I said, me and him are still together. And he still gets hurt when I say to him, I'm going to meet this guy, a friend of mine, or I've got somebody who's interested in me and who's wooing me right now and try. He still doesn't like that, despite the fact that he's got another woman in his life and he's fully accepted that I can never be his number one. And I've accepted that.
Yeah.
Because, by the way, at some point I did ask him, can I be your number one? Can I be your number one? Can you ever see yourself fully committing to me and getting rid of that girl? And he said no. And he made comments. The reason was, one, I am older than him. Two, I've got children. And as a young guy who's never been married and who hasn't had children, he just knew that that would cause so many problems with his family. He did not want to go down that route. And he was very honest about that from day dot. And I thought, okay, fine, that's okay. That's okay, that's fine. Who am I to say, no, that's not a good reason? That was his reason, and I had to accept that.
I got 2 words to say to all of this. Mud ting. We've unfortunately run out of time.
Yeah.
And I'll just play the lesson back because I think that's what's really important here.
Yeah.
Lesson reads, when you get into a relationship with a social contract that is defined, make sure you stick to the terms and conditions. And that's the lesson we're all going to take away.
Yeah.
I can't thank you enough for being incredibly honest with everything. I appreciate it. It doesn't go unnoticed. It doesn't go unappreciated. And I guess I just have to wish that it all works out in a way that is okay for you and him.
Yeah.
After all of this.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go do some thinking for the rest of this week. But honestly, Tando, I can't thank you enough for being
Thank you.
on this episode. And you guys have been listening to another episode of the Feelilng Station. I'm your host, Tinto. And I will catch you in next month's episode at this rate because I got shit to think about. Right. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you. Good night. Bye.
Tell me what you're feeling.
Satis on Daru Raini and Chakis.
Tell me what you're feeling. Now that it's over.
Satis on Daru Raini and Chakis.
Let me talk about my feelings. Let me talk about my feelings, yeah.
Urudoi motoru no to kujiziru amai.
Kujiziru amai. Love is a fire.
Urudoi motoru no to kujiziru amai.